This is the internal struggle and the internal fight of a modern woman. The internal struggle and the internal fight of the modern woman is her feminine energy, her desire to be feminine and submissive versus her social programming. And this fight is very strong. It's a very difficult fight. Most of the time, social programming is going to win. At the very least, the social programming is going to win when it comes to long-term relationships. This is what I call a gentleman gigolo complex. Got my words a little jumbled up. A get a little tongue twister. A gentleman gigolo complex is a phrase that I've coined. This basically means that a woman views being dominant and masculine and sexually arousing. Being a very sexual person is something that is put into the short-term relationship or the short-term sexual casual sex department. The same way men have Madonna whore complexes. And when it comes to their feminine energy, or when it comes to what it is that they desire for a relationship, not their feminine energy, but what they desire for a relationship, they desire a man who's very compassionate, who's generous, who's emotionally empathetic, sympathetic, and understanding, and who shows them a certain level of respect. Now, when that desire to be dominated is pushed into the box of what is viewed as not being relationship material, it creates this gentleman gigolo complex because the sexual urge to let go and to let go of those desires, those urges, are repressed. And this is where it becomes a fight for a woman. It becomes a fight for a woman in a situation, in a scenario where she has a capacity for a certain level of sexual attraction with the man that she's with. But in order to keep that man, when you're prematurely integrated, in order to keep that woman, in order for that woman to keep that man in a box where he remains relationship material in her mind and to maintain a certain semblance of control, she has to take his dominance and his masculinity and his sexuality, and she has to lower that down to like a 7 level of sexual attraction. You got to understand what I'm saying. It has to be unconsciously lowered so that that guy doesn't appear to be a man who's not relationship material, because then that'll create cognitive dissonance. So what they tend to do is, if it's a situation where the sexual attraction is high, she either has to be in a situation where she can experience it, but she can only experience it through being celibate and being around you. And I know that sounds a little bit difficult. Like, what? That doesn't make sense. No, understand what I'm saying. Either she has to control it by being celibate when she's around you and limiting sexual access, or she has to control it by putting you into the box of a fuck buddy. So this is what tends to lead to women really only responding to toxicity, or only responding to you not being emotionally invested when it comes to showing sexual desire. It's a lack of sexual integration. Like, this particular process, this is what leads to a situation where a woman, if things appear to be going well in the relationship, things appear to be going well, that's a time where, when you're giving her a lot of emotional empathy, you're being very intimate with her, you're expressing yourself to her, you're telling her what you feel and what you think and all these different things, it begins to hurt her sexual attraction to you. And it's not a matter that her sexual attraction is really hurt to you. It's more so a matter that she has to repress the level of sexual attraction that she has for you in order to maintain being that emotionally close to you. Because she's going to see a certain level of masculinity as toxic, right? That's the social programming. The social programming is about keeping women in control, right? And like, this is a big part of narratives that get pushed about sex between men and women. Like, I hear narratives saying that there's only 11% chance of a woman having an orgasm if she has sex with a man. Like, I believe that a certain aspect of this is some of it is just propaganda, But there are certain things behind it. One thing behind it is if a woman is dealing with a man for validation, or she's dealing with a man in order to give him sex and as a payment for his emotional investment, then in order to be transactional about it, she has to lower her level of desire so she doesn't lose control and sleep with a man whenever he wants, however he wants. Because if she gets too deep into letting go of control, and she gets too deep into releasing her inhibitions, then she'll lose the ability to leverage sexuality in order to get the things that she wants out of the relationship. And when she's unable to do that, it makes a woman feel uncomfortable. It makes a woman feel unsafe. And she's taught that that's the way it's supposed to be. That's what the social programming is. So what the social programming does is it says, okay, a dominant, masculine man that I'm sexually attracted to, that is something that is a turnoff. So instead of me acknowledging that that's what it is and that's how I see it, what I have to do is I have to look at the situation and say, that's just toxic masculinity. You ever been in situations where you're having conversations or debates with women? Especially like online, or like online on Facebook or whatever it is, maybe in a forum of some kind. You know, if you're funny about it and you say things that are very, what people would consider things that are very dominant, things that are very masculine, and especially sexually charged things of that nature. Things that like involve BDSM practices or showing a high level of sexual value through your ability to gain access to women without splitting ways with your resources, or being able to have sex with women without lying to them or manipulating them and giving the idea that sex is something that you want from them. No, when you use that sense of humor in a way to express that sex is something that the women want from you and that you're giving it to them. See, at first, when you say things like that, a woman will say that you're toxic. And then she'll begin to debate with you. And she'll begin to say how you're wrong, and that's not how it is, and that's not how it works. But then there's also going to be women around who have a high enough level of sexual attraction to you to where they're going to agree with exactly what you're saying, and then they're going to start following you around because they want some of that dick. Or at the very least, they want to feel that energy around them. Because they get turned on. Sometimes they get off on that. Sometimes just having conversations with dominant masculine men and being in those spaces is enough for a woman to desire to masturbate or to increase her sex drive so she can sleep with her beta male at home. And it may be a situation where she could have a capacity for that level of sexual attraction to that man, right? She could have a high enough capacity, but she has to keep it low in order to maintain control. See, part of the reason why a woman doesn't have to lower her sexual attraction to a man who's a short-term relationship or a fling is because she already has it in her mind that this dude isn't long-term material. And because she already has that in her mind and she shut that down and she's blocked that out, she blocks out his, like anything above a certain level of emotionally empathetic, sympathetic, caring, understanding type of behavior, any level of non-sexual intimacy that goes above a certain level. When a woman puts you into the gigolo category, she is there for your dominant traits, she's there for your masculine traits, she's there for your sexuality and your sexual desirability. But anything beyond a certain level, she has to block that out, so that also gets repressed on that side. This is where she goes to release her inhibitions. This is where she goes to be able to lose control without worrying about that has to be something that's in perpetuity. Because when a woman's in that state of horniness, she's able to think this way and to experience these type of experiences. That's when she's horny and she's highly aroused. But there are certain things related to long-term relationships that those very same things that lead to good, positive, healthy, long-term relationships by the definitions of society are the very same things that begin to cause a woman to put you in a category that makes you sexually undesirable, or at least not worthy of being lusted, or at least not worthy of being lusted and submitted to. Sexual submissiveness. So there's different levels to this, but you know, part of the gigolo aspect of it, is just the fact that when the emotional aspect of it, it gets too high too soon, then what a woman will do is then she'll begin to get confused. Because if you have the sexual desirability and then you also have the non-sexual desirability, and you have emotional intelligence and empathy and sympathy, and you care and you compromise and all those different things that her social programming tells her that she wants in a relationship, what it does is that's when a woman will get turned off. Because it's about control. If the sex is too good for how much a woman likes you, not all, but women with the gentleman gigolo complex, if the sex is too good, or the domination level gets over a certain point, if the masculinity gets over a certain point, if the sexuality gets over a certain point, then she's not willing to go there, because she wants it to be a long term. She sees certain things sexually as things that if you do those things with somebody who you want a relationship with, it's worse than doing that with somebody who's just a short-term fling, because that short-term fling, you don't have to deal with them consistently. You don't have to worry about how they're going to see you based on those actions. You don't have to worry about necessarily getting sexually jealous, right? See, this is the thing, sexual jealousy is somewhat of a masculine trait. Understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying that there's nothing insecure about it or it's not cool. What I'm saying is that for a woman who's dealing with a dominant masculine man who she knows is very sexual, she's not trading sexuality for that man's loyalty. She's not trading sexuality she's not trading the image of not being that sexual in order to make herself appear to be relationship material or marriage material. She's not, she's not worried about you spending money on these women and taking away from the household, because you don't need to spend money to get sex. She's not worried about you leaving her for that other woman, because she knows that you're not moved by how good sex is or how beautiful a woman is. You make decisions based off of a woman getting on your program. When a woman knows that you're dominant